Welcome to the Farmington High School Building Committee East Farms Neighborhood Presentation. My name is Sharon Mazzocchi, and I am a resident of Farmington and a member of the FHS Building Committee. The Farmington High School Building Committee was appointed in May 2019. We were directed by Town Council to solicit and evaluate conceptual design options from two noted school architectural firms to provide the Town Council with the information required to set the overall project scope and the municipal project cost range. After a 9-month competitive process, we thoroughly reviewed the conceptual designs from each, which included an option for maintaining the current facility, doing major renovation on the current facility, or building a new school. We recommended the construction of a new high school as the best solution to address the Board of Education statement of needs. On February 4th, 2020, the Town Council unanimously voted to select the new building solution. The new high school will provide a flexible and engaging learning environment for our students in the community. As an educator and resident of Farmington for over 25 years, I have 3 sons who graduated from the Farmington school system. I recognize the importance of this project, and I encourage you to follow the Farmington High School Building Project website for current updates and the future of what's going on. Presenting with me tonight are other Farmington High School Building Committee representatives, our professional partners, PTO leaders, town staff, school administrators who have all been instrumental in the development of the new high school. Thank you for your support and your hard work. I'd like to also recognize Joe Capandefaro, Town Council member, Brian Conley, Town Council member, Ellen Sayuda, Board of Education, and Sarah Healy, Board of Education member, who join us tonight in the support of this project. Now I'd like to introduce Joe Capandefaro, Town Council member.
Thank you, Sharon. Good evening. And on behalf of the Town Council, we are glad that you are joining us tonight so you can learn about the Farmington High School project. This is an exciting and necessary investment for our students and for our community. As a result of strategic and responsible fiscal planning, the town is well positioned to move forward with the new high school project. The Town Council fully supports this project. It's the right solution at the right time.
Thank you, Joe. Now I'd like to introduce Ellen Sayuda, our Board of Education Chairman.
Thank you so much, Sharon. This is Ellen Sayuda, Chair of the Board of Education. As a Board of Education, we are unified in our support of the proposed new high school for several reasons. The proposed new high school addresses all the needs of the current high school facility while supporting educational programming now and into the future. It will prepare all students for the world that awaits them beyond their K-12 education with state-of-the-art learning spaces aligned to our educational specifications and our vision. It creates high-quality continuity of instruction during construction, eliminating educational disruptions because it's a new building. It condenses the construction period to build the new building compared to other solutions that we explored. This accelerates the timeline for current Farmington students to experience high school in the new building. And it represents a cost-effective solution given the costs of other options we explored and will eliminate costly repairs and issues associated with the other options in the future. The time is now to address the current facility in a comprehensive manner. We are thrilled to share details of the new high school facility with our community and join together to support this project.
Thank you, Ellen. We are happy to have a teacher that also lives in town with us tonight. I'd like to introduce Erica Wisniewski, a teacher at East Farm School who will give a statement on the Farmington High School building project.
Thank you, Sharon. My name is Erica Wisniewski, and I'm the school nurse over at East Farms Elementary School. And I'm also one of your neighbors, and I have 3 of my own children going through our schools. I am proud to live and work in Farmington. The high school building project is extremely important to me and my fellow educators. Farmington students have traditionally led way beyond their K-12 education as successful and contributing citizens. However, expectations have changed when it comes to knowledge, skills, and dispositions required to compete on a global level for college admissions and in the work environment. A new high school would advance 21st century teaching and learning aligned to Farmington vision of the global citizen, given the design of the proposed high school. The vision is directly aligned to what many companies cite as the knowledge, skills, and dispositions they are seeking in employees now and into the future. Please join me in supporting this important project that will benefit Farmington students as well as our community as a destination, not only an exemplary education for Farmington's children now and in the future, but also a gathering place in our community for events and enrichment. A new high school will enhance the experience of all residents living in our wonderful town.
Thank you. We encourage all participants to use the Q&A feature to submit a question during this presentation this evening. There will be a dedicated Q&A section at the end of this presentation. As a reminder, questions can be sent to the FHS Building Committee anytime by using the comment form on the website, www.fhsbuildingproject.org. Now we'll look at our current high school challenges. A comprehensive statement of needs was created by the Board of Education and approved by Town Council in February 2019. The statement of needs is the basis for recommending building a new high school. The main issues are accreditation and accessibility. The New England Association of Schools and Colleges has placed FHS on warning status for serious facility deficiencies, including ADA access, heating and ventilation problems, leaky roof, inadequate science, cafeteria, auditorium, and library and media facilities, and other facility issues that limit educational opportunities for students. Security compliance is also an issue. FHS has already experienced 7 additional renovations before heightened security expectations were a consideration. Sprawling layout. FHS is a large, inefficient, mostly one-floor facility with too many long and narrow hallways. As you can see in the image on this slide, there have been numerous additions over the years that have contributed to this sprawling layout. Educational programming. FHS is nearing its capacity to provide 21st century programming and learning spaces that prepare students for the future. Energy efficiency. FHS is not energy efficient and is not cost effective. To learn more about the statement of needs, there is a dedicated page on the Building Committee's website, www.fhsbuildingproject.org. Now I'd like to introduce Renee St. Hilaire, principal at East Farm School.
Thank you, Sharon. Some of the current challenges with our current high school include that it has reached its limits for providing 21st century programming and learning spaces that prepare today's leaders to be part of global solutions. Also, it would be costly to renovate for today's flexible and adaptable teaching methods. Lastly, it would involve major and costly renovations to bring up to safety and security standards.
Thank you. Lisa Kepczynski, assistant principal at Farmington High School, now present on enrollment projections.
Thank you, Sharon. Welcome, everybody.
You're welcome.
In 2019, Farmington Public Schools retained the services of Peter M. Prouda, PhD, an expert in public school enrollment, to do a 10-year projection. Projections are a critical part and a required step in planning for school facilities. The state of Connecticut requires 8-year highest projected enrollment, school-based projections as a critical component of determining the size of the project for which reimbursement is eligible. Several factors that influence school enrollment are town population, women of childbearing age, labor force, housing, grade 9 repeaters, dropouts, non-public enrollment, non-resident enrollment in Farmington schools, and resident enrollment in other public schools and migration. In 2029, an estimated 1,401 students will be enrolled at Farmington High School, which is an increase of 131 students over our current enrollment, which is a growth of 10%.
Thank you. I'd like to introduce Kathy Greeter, superintendent of schools, who present the value of the new high school.
Good evening, everyone. Farmington's vision of the global citizen leads the way when we think about curriculum, programming, instruction, and now the design of a new high school. If students are to become self-aware, resourceful learners who can think critically and problem solve and work effectively with diverse groups of people and ultimately make contributions to a better world, then they can't just sit by passively in cube-like classrooms, listening to teacher lecture, copying notes off the board so that they can pass a quiz on Friday. Our high school students in the second decade of the 21st century are engaged in a more active, collaborative, and self-directed kind of learning. They work on projects where they are expected to apply knowledge to complex problems. This looks like classroom spaces organized for small groups, circle up debates, demonstrations, partner work, and it changes day to day or period by period. Flexible space is critical. A new building design would allow students to spill out into common spaces and classroom collaborative areas and meet with students in companion classes. We would like to do more interdisciplinary projects in collaborative spaces that would allow for that. We need space for students to post their work on the walls or display tables for critique and feedback. With critique and feedback are essential components of our learning model, students circulate and view each other's work in progress as models for their own learning. They comment on and provide suggestions for improvement, much like working professionals do. Today's students are more involved in hands-on making and doing. Students are creating and producing, again, more active than passive, and doing the real work of scientists, musicians, artists, engineers, builders, and designers. A new high school would give us state-of-the-art spaces for this kind of learning. High school students learn best when they have a blend of independent and interdependent time for thinking, writing, reflection, reading, and research. They need quiet spaces to focus on their work and collaborative spaces to meet with peers and talk about their work. We know that students are more motivated when they can make connections between what they're learning in school and something they care about in the world. We want a building to be alive and representations of what students care about and how they are making an impact. We need space to exhibit and present work, to engage with virtual and in-person experts and gather in small communities with a common goal or purpose. Space can encourage and promote student voice and engagement. And of course, above all, the environment for learning at FHS should be inclusive and respectful of all individuals. It must welcome everyone, allow access for all, and express a feeling of community and care. A place where everyone can grow and discover their personal talents and interests. Physical barriers, crowded hallways, undersized spaces, and outdated heating and cooling systems impact students' feeling of physical and emotional safety and comfort. So once again, we need a building that will reflect and allow for the kinds of learning students need that prepare our students to become global citizens who are thinkers, collaborators, contributors, empowered learners, and self-aware individuals. All of these spaces truly make a difference in the day-to-day learning environment of FHS. Right now, we do the very best we can with boxy classrooms, long empty hallways, a tiny library, undersized auditorium with broken seats, and nowhere else to go for smaller presentations and performances. But we imagine the joy and energy of students and teachers together, as well as our community in a space designed for limitless potential.
Thank you, Kathy. Why on the current site? A site evaluation subcommittee was responsible for researching possible alternative site options for FHS and to identify and document site constraints and benefits. After a full review and analysis of potential alternate sites in Farmington, it was determined that the current municipal site was the only viable option. A copy of the detailed analysis is acceptable on the building committee website. I'd like to introduce Richard from TSKP Studio, who will provide an overview of the schematic design.
Thanks very much, Sharon. So as you all probably know, the only access to the existing high school site is from Route 4 up Monteith Drive. The existing footprint of the building and the parking lots, as you can see in this aerial photograph, occupy almost half of the existing site. And the remainder contains athletic fields such as the football field, a ball field, tennis courts, and the upper fields on that plateau in the upper left-hand corner. And once it was determined that there were no other viable sites available for a new high school, it became our task to develop a design that would be accommodated on this site. So we had to find a way to build a new building on the existing site while minimizing disruption on the existing school. Next. So this diagram illustrates our solution. Our strategy was to create a very compact 3-story building and to place that building on the eastern side of the site as far as possible from the neighboring property line, but with enough distance from the existing building to minimize disruption during construction of this new facility. The building that you see here is shown in a blue footprint, and the gray areas represent all of the parking areas around it. The Monteith Drive will be widened to accommodate traffic. Right now, it's too narrow, and people who try to create 2 lanes in the single lane create a dangerous condition. So the project does include improvements to Monteith Drive, making each side of the drive wide enough for 2 legitimate travel lanes. There's also an improvement in the shoulders on each side of the drive for emergency vehicles should they be necessary. This proposed layout on the site achieves the goal of making a very compact facility on the existing site while minimizing disruption of the existing building. We did look at the existing building and we determined that a portion of it could be saved, namely the 900 wing. So that's made part of the plan. Next slide. The form of the building is very simple and clear. And this slide in the upper illustration shows how the building will look from the outside as visitors approach the building. This walkway that you see here is between the vehicular drop-off area for cars and also buses on opposite sides of this walkway. The administrative offices are located on the ground floor, immediately adjacent to the entrance. And the exterior is constructed of very energy efficient material, very durable, such as masonry and glass, which is also very easy to maintain. Next slide. We did have public outreach meetings to get some feedback, and based upon that feedback, we incorporated some features into the design of the building. For example, we created a separate public entrance for after-hour spaces, such as to the cafeteria, the auditorium, and the gymnasium. The picture at the bottom of this slide illustrates that after-hours entrance. This is the loud side of the building. It faces the 900 wing and it faces also the football field. On the opposite side of the building, which is in the illustration on the upper part of this slide, is the quiet side of the building. This is where the academic spaces are located. There's no public entrance on this side. We do have a walkway, as you can see, that travels along the eastern side of this site, but that walkway is for emergency purposes only. There would be a gate at each end of this walkway, only available for emergency vehicles. We're also planning some screening that you can see here on the right side of the site in this picture with some berming and additional plantings. Next slide, please. The interior of the building will be filled with natural light using skylights and clerestory windows up above. There will be ample circulation area to give the students comfortable space to safely pass between classes. And the interior finishes will be very durable and easy to sanitize and keep clean, such as the porcelain tile floors here in the public spaces. Next. Okay, so what I did is I rotated the plan. I took that footprint, that blue footprint that you saw on the site plan, and I rotated it so that now the entrance to the building is from the right side. The building is laid out in a very sensible way. We divide the building into two parts. There's the public side, which has all of the major spaces, such as the auditorium, gymnasium, and the cafeteria. And then there's the academic side that has all of the clusters of classrooms that you can see here in the rose-colored spaces. Next slide. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a peek into what this building could look like on the inside. That star that you see in the footprint is located in the atrium as soon as you come into the building. And what you'll see is a large multi-purpose space that serves not only as a corridor, but a place for other kinds of activities in the building. Next slide. The cafeteria is that yellow area that is adjacent to the atrium space, and it's located in the center of the building, and it's available all day long. It's not tucked away in the dark corner of the facility. It's a nice, brightly illuminated space, as you can see. And it's adjacent to the auditorium on the right and the gymnasium on the left. So this could be a wonderful space where we have trophy cases and memorabilia and access to ticketing for events that are happening in the auditorium. Next slide, please. The auditorium itself is designed to be a community space as well as a space for high school students who are interested in music and performing arts, but also in the technical aspects of putting on a performance or a presentation. So all of the technical side of the house, if you will, are made very safe for students. You'll see catwalks up above. Those catwalks will have railings so that it is perfectly safe for students to control all of the stage lighting. I was asked at an earlier neighborhood meeting about the size of this auditorium. It's planned for 650 seats. Next. On the opposite side is the gymnasium, and this space will have daylight by using sawtooth structure. As you can see, there are clear story windows that allow daylight directly into the space. It's possible to even use this gymnasium without turning on the lights. Next slide. So if we move to those pink areas where we have classrooms, and there are 3 levels of classrooms, 3 floors. And I know one question that was asked, why are you building a building with 3 floors? Well, we want to make the footprint of the building as compact as possible. So the best way to do that is stack the classrooms into a 3-story configuration. And in this way, we minimize the amount of roof area that we need to build, and we minimize the foundation area that is necessary. But these classrooms are clustered in around learning community spaces. And immediately outside the classrooms, you'll have breakout areas such as you see here in this photograph of a similar project. And adjacent to those breakout areas are the faculty offices behind that glass wall. Next. The classrooms themselves have movable furniture, which allows the learning to be very flexible. Teachers can rearrange the classrooms to have individual learning or group learning or seminar kinds of arrangements. This goes a long way to providing options for learning and teaching. Next. We'll also have special rooms such as maker spaces and digital labs. And ideally, we would like to put these spaces behind glass partitions so that you could see learning going on all day long. This adds a lot of excitement to the spaces inside the building. Next. The media center, which would be located on the middle floor, the 2nd floor, would also be available all the time. It also would be available for community meetings after hours. And as you can see, we're making it very transparent so that people see activities. Next. And I think this is near the end of my slides for the interior. So this shows a sample science lab. This happens to be on the 3rd floor. Those are the larger pink spaces, as you can see. And there will be space enough for a theory portion of instruction as well as a practical instruction. Next slide, which will be my last slide. I'd like to say a couple of words about our experience with COVID and what features are included in the building to make sure that in cases of future pandemics, that there are some measures that have been taken to reduce the risk of exposure. And basically, we know that masks are probably the most effective. However, what we've done in the budgeting and the planning of this facility is to have larger classrooms, wider corridors, easily cleanable surfaces, touchless plumbing fixtures, and lots of ventilation. We have a higher level of air filtration, I should say, than you would normally have. We have the ability to flush out all of the air from the building on a regular basis. We also have divided the ventilation system so that we have separate zones to make it easier to separate cohorts of students and staff, to isolate zones and to prevent cross-contamination of air. So we've thought a lot about this and budgeted appropriately for it. Next, I'd like to have Mark Grilli continue the discussion. He's with Construction Solutions Group, the project manager for this project. Mark?
Thank you, Richard. Good evening. So we'll talk a little bit about the estimated total project cost, which is approximately $135.6 million. Town Council set a net municipal project maximum of $110 million for the project, which the Farmington High School Building Committee is committed to delivering a project below the net municipal project maximum. This will be offset by reimbursement from the state of Connecticut, which is estimated at approximately $26.3 million.
Thank you, Mark. Now, Kat Krajewski, Assistant Town Manager, will provide an overview of the tax impact to the citizens of Farmington.
Because of Farmington's ongoing retirement of existing debt, there will only be 5 years, fiscal years 2023 to 2027, that the high school project will increase the property tax. For example, the impact on a homeowner with an average assessed value of $226,777 is estimated to be $466 in total over those 5 years, averaging $93 per year or under $8 per month. In the remaining years of the bond, there is no incremental increases to taxes due to the high school debt issues, as the required debt service is absorbed by the retirement of old debt. Remember that assessment is 70% of the market value of your house. So a house assessed at $226,777 is a market value of approximately $324,000.
Mark from CSG will provide an overview of the estimated project timeline of this project.
Thank you, Sharon. So the first line shows the proposed date for town council approval of this project on May 11th, 2021. At this time, the town council will send the project to referendum. Once the referendum is set, election laws prohibit municipalities from using taxpayer dollars to advocate for the approval of a referendum question. The next line shows the tentative referendum date for June 3rd of this year. This is the proposed date for Farmington voters to cast their ballot toward the proposed new high school. Prior to the referendum, we will be preparing the state grant application for submission no later than June 30th. The application holds our spot with the Office of School Construction Grants for state-funded reimbursements. Immediately following the approval of the referendum, the design team will start work on the final construction documents. This process typically takes a year to complete, which would bring our progress into the summer of 2022. Next, the construction firms will be engaged through a formal bidding process, and construction would commence in September following the start of the school year in 2022. There'll be no disruption to teaching and learning during construction. There'll be a fenced-off section that will be clearly marked that separates the current high school from the building site. Students could expect to start their 2024 school year in the new building following a 2-year construction period. The renovation of the 900 wing would begin the summer of 2024, along with the demolition of the remaining buildings, leaving remaining site work and relocated athletic fields to be completed by the summer of 2025. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now begin the question and answer session. Kat Krajewski will facilitate this part of the presentation. As a reminder, questions can be submitted to the building committee at any time using the comment form on our website. Kat will read the questions received and direct to the appropriate person to answer. Please note that similar questions will be grouped together.
Thank you, Sharon. So we received just a few questions so far throughout the presentation, and I would encourage anyone on, if you have questions, to please submit them through the question and answer button at the bottom of your screen. So the first question, this will go to Richard, and that is, how much larger is the new building square footage wise?
Well, the existing building is about 198,000 square feet. The proposed new building is about 239,000 square feet. So it's roughly 41,000 square feet larger, or about 20% larger than the existing building. But I should point out that the arrangement of the existing building is extremely efficient. In the existing building, you have a lot of circulation space, a lot of corridors. And as you could see by the layouts that I showed you, we're making it a much more efficient layout. So although the total gross square footage increase is about 20%, it's a much more efficient layout.
Thank you, Richard. The next question is about safety. With all the transparent safe spaces, what about safety?
Well, most first responders will tell you that they want to be able to enter into a building, immediately scan where there are issues, and then focus on those locations. Transparency can also be a safety feature. So it is important to be able to give responders those kinds of abilities to see where the difficulties are. We also are incorporating safety glazing and making sure that the ground levels have all impact glass to prevent any break-ins or safety concerns. On top of that, we have monitors and cameras throughout the building. And most importantly, we're reducing the entrances into the building. The entrances will be secure and located in very, very visible spaces.
Thank you, Richard. I'm just seeing, oh, here's another question that just came in. How flexible will the new building be for accessible voting and emergency shelter? Two of the other functions for the school. Richard, if you could take that one, accessibility for voting and emergency shelter.
Well, the building is ideal for voting. If you could recall that public space, the atrium space, as well as the cafeteria or commons area, those are ideal for voting booths and easy access directly from the parking lot in front. So people will be able to circulate very easily when it comes time to voting. So I think it's a wonderful community space as well as a high school space. So I think we do double duty in this kind of a layout as far as voting is concerned. And emergency shelter, yes, we have a number of features to be able to provide emergency services. I know that the high school currently functions as a place where people can go and get relief if they if their residences have been compromised through some weather event and they need a place to stay, or they need a place to get warm if they've lost heat in their home, or the opposite, if they need a cooling place in periods of extreme heat. I know that's the way the existing building functions. The new building will function in the same way, and it will do a much better job doing that, quite frankly, because we will be able to provide a generator that is large enough to provide emergency services so that people can come in and use the portions of the building will continue to function even in a weather event. And people will be able to come in. So we have planned and budgeted for use of the facility in case there is a need to serve the community in an emergency situation.
Thank you, Richard. I received a few questions regarding phasing and how the timeline related to project timeline. So Mark, this is going to be geared towards you, and Richard, feel free to jump in as well. Question was, I think, to clarify a little bit, during the 2 years of construction, where the students are going to go, and describing the impact to students. And then how guaranteed is the timeline of the school being open in August 2024? Is there time built in for delays, or would the opening date get bumped? So a little bit more on project timeline, Mark.
Sure. So to answer the first question, well, the students will remain in place in the current high school while construction goes on in the new construction site. The site, again, will be completely separated with a security fence, our construction fence, and delineated so that it'll be clear which is new construction and which is existing high school. Again, the students, the teaching will not be disrupted in any way from the construction itself. So students will not need to be displaced or students need to move in any location. Once the new building is constructed, the students and teachers that summer, the way the schedule is laid out is so that in the summer of 2024, there'll be a big move where everything will move into the new building. And so when students and teachers arrive, they'll start that school year in 2024. We don't see any current delays that could impact. The good thing about new construction is there's not a lot of unknowns. And so once we get out of the ground and start building, everything is pretty well predicted. We've got a lot of great experience with some great construction management firms out there who've done this plenty of times. And we're very confident with the scheduled timeline that we've laid out. I don't know if I answered both questions. What was?
I think you did a great job, Mark. You answered the question perfectly. Yeah, I agree. So the students will continue to use the high school. You don't see any reason not to have them continue. We're planning to have adequate parking by adding a temporary parking lot adjacent to the library, which will later be restored into site. So we don't see any interruption in that regard. And guarantees, well, with a good building company, a good construction management firm, they monitor the construction progress constantly. So if for some reason they are lagging behind with one trade or another aspect, a detailed aspect, they will add manpower to it. This is something that construction companies do constantly. So that's kind of built in. That kind of contingency would be built in.
This next question, Richard, this will go to you. How will this affect or impact traffic on Monteith?
So we have enlarged both sides of the driveway on Monteith so that we have two legitimate full lanes on each side, plus enough shoulder capacity should there be an event to have emergency vehicles bypass that traffic as well. So you're going to end up with a tremendously improved traffic pattern on Monteith Drive itself.
Thank you, Richard. The next question we have is about total finance costs of the project. The numbers that we have were from the town director of finance, and those were generated from a financial forecast that's inclusive of operating budget increases, capital projects, the K-8 facilities assessment. So that is an impact holistically with the property tax increase, including the high school project. We can absolutely run them more information on the different scenarios because they are going to be multiple bonds throughout the course of the project. So we're happy to run that information. And we do have a topic specific cost meeting coming up that will be on April 29th at noon as part of our topic Thursday. So that is the total project cost presentation. And I think that's all the questions that we received. If there are any questions at any time, I would encourage everybody to submit online on our website. And we will, oh, I'm sorry, we just got one more traffic one. Richard, this one's for you. Are there any options for alternate entrances or exits to help lessen the traffic on Route 4?
We did look at that, and quite frankly, there really is not. We would end up directing traffic through either neighborhood areas, which would not be a very good idea. We also looked at the possibility of entering the site from the east side, but the topography is very, very difficult. We would have to do a lot of earthwork, a lot of changes. So the answer is no. Route 4 is the only option. We have talked to the town and town engineer about potential improvements to Route 4 itself. Now, while those kinds of improvements are not part of this project, there are things that could be done by the town. That would have to be done as a separate project. That would have to go through DOT, state DOT review and approval because it's a state road. But we have put on paper a strategy to create separate turning lanes, making some improvements to the traffic light so that traffic will flow much more freely through that intersection. But again, it's not part of the budget for this project. Nevertheless, we have had some discussions with the town engineer about potentially making those improvements in the future.
Thank
Richard,
you.
would it be fair to say that the additional lanes on Monteith will improve the flow of traffic in and out of Farmington, which might relieve some backup pressure on Route 4?
Yes, I think that is correct. Right now, Monteith backs up because people aren't able to make a right-hand turn because people are waiting to make a left, for example, as they're exiting the drive, Monteith Drive. So having two legitimate lanes so that people could take a right and not have to wait will prevent those kinds of backups from happening. So yes, widening Monteith Drive, both inbound and outbound, will help tremendously.
One more question we received about clarity in the cost and is the tax cost based on 110 million or 137 million? And that is based off of 110 million, which is the net municipal rate or range, or the maximum net municipal cost that we would have after the reimbursement. So it's based on the 110 million. The next question we received is, sorry, just scrolling through here. This Q&A feature is new to me. What is the consequence if this does not pass? Maybe Kathy Greeter, you want to talk a little bit about what would happen if this does not pass and the statement of needs and the current facility?
So thank you for that question. We have been working on this project for many years, as everyone knows, getting close to 10 years now. And during that time, our high school has aged even more and continues to have significant issues. If you were to look at the statement of needs, you'll get a better understanding of the comprehensive issues we are facing with the FHS facility, impacting education for our students on a daily basis. So I would say that it would be very challenging for us to continue in the current state and go through another process at some point, because something has to be done. It's not that we can just keep the high school the way it is and continue to progress. And that's why we're coming to the community and really coming up with a comprehensive solution. And after this committee has looked at various options, the new high school is the preferred option because of what you heard in the presentation. The new high school has a shorter construction timeline, enabling our students to get into a new high school at a faster rate, which means more grade levels who are here today in our school system, K-12, will be able to spend their entire career in a new high school because of the short timeline. It's also a project that doesn't disrupt our students while they're in the current high school during construction. I think that was something that was really important to our community. And in this process, we were able to really solve that issue for parents and families who were concerned with educational disruption during construction. And I think that this high school also aligns the education we provide in Farmington. The facility will actually enhance it instead of limiting what we provide to our students. We will have more classrooms and more instructional space and flexible space to expand options for students and really reflect what the Farmington community is looking for in their high school. So it would be significant if we were not able to pass the referendum, not only for the education that we provide up in the high school, but there's also health and safety and wellness issues that are impacting our students when it comes to the current high school.
Thank you, Kathy. Another question that we received is, when is the referendum? I can answer that one. We are working towards an early June 3rd referendum. That will have to be approved by town council, and that is set to go to town council in May 11th. And once they set the referendum, like Mark said, that triggers the what we call a blackout period, where the building committee is not able to advocate for or against the project. So May 11th, it'll be set, there'll be a town meeting on it, and then the referendum will be June 3rd. I think
I should also say, and I should have said this in my answer, but the cost of doing nothing does require funding. So if the consequence of not passing the new high school also has financial implications as well, because there are significant issues that need to be addressed.
Thank you, Kathy. Mark, I have a kind of a general question for you about reimbursement. Maybe if you could explain the reimbursement process a little bit for state reimbursement, just what the process is and when we would be expected to get that.
Sure. So our application needs to be in by June 30th of this year in order to hold our application spot with the Office of School Construction Grants. They put that through legislation, and then there is a priority list that comes out in December. And typically what happens is once the applications are in and reviewed, they go to the priority list. We've been working over the last, I'd say, year and a half with the Office of School Construction Grants on this project. We've shared our project with them. They're very supportive of this project, and they've been working with us even on the reimbursement rates for the 900 wings. So we're very confident that that this process is going to go smoothly.
Now, Mark, what if we don't get reimbursement? Are we kind of, as long as we get on the priority list, are we good to go? Or, kind of what's the process for that?
As long as we're on the priority list, in that year, they allocate X amount of dollars for schools. So as long as our application is in and we are on that priority list, we're guaranteed those reimbursements. I don't know if Richard, if you want to add anything to that.
Sure. I've been doing this for a very long time, and once projects are on the priority list, I've never had the experience where funding did not go through. I did have one experience in which funding was delayed, but they've always gone through.
Right. I think just one more thing, legislation would go through at the end of June, so we would know that.
Thank you. And to clarify, that was a question that I received. So thank you for spelling that out for us. I think that's all the questions that we have. Again, anybody that would like to submit a question on the building committee, we do have a comment on the building committee website. We do have a comment form. So please fill that out and send it in to us, and we will try to address them in a timely fashion. So I think that's it for questions. If you want to advance to the next slide, Devin.
Okay, we encourage everyone to visit the officially sanctioned factual website, www.fhsbuildingproject.org, as your source for information, updates, presentation recordings, and anytime you have questions regarding the project. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. That concludes tonight's presentation. Thank you, everyone, for your time and your continued engagement. Have a safe evening.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.